So this was the 16 unit building rental arbitrage opportunity. Wanted to do kind of a case study walkthrough on this opportunity and kind of share with everybody what I typically look for, especially when I'm going into a new market and doing the analysis for a potential rental arbitrage opportunity. This was a 16 unit building in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's actually a mixed use. So this is the front of the building, and it has commercial units on the lower level. And on the top level, these are all one bedroom units. And so this was a property that was purchased a little over a year ago and completely renovated. It was originally built back in the 70s, and when they purchased it, it was, obviously dated, a lot of maintenance issues. So they completely redid the commercial space, completely did the residential one bedroom units, did a pretty good job on the rehab. This is the back of the building, and so the one bedroom units are accessed up these stairs, and there's 16 one bedroom units on the top level. These units down here, these are the back doors to the commercial space that you kind of saw on the front side. And as I mentioned, these have all been completely renovated. And so all kind of, upgraded, updated, new appliances, actually has new washers and dryers. And so the interesting opportunity here is that the owner of the building that's done this renovation, done this rehab, ironically, in today's market, they were able to get the entire commercial 16 units fully rented. And so the retail space is renting for about 1,000, in some cases 1,200. The bigger spaces in the front of the building are going for 1,200 a month, and then the ones on the side that are smaller are going for about 1,000 a month. So they were able to successfully get, surprisingly, all of those units fully rented, right? And so this is obviously on a busy street, and so there's one unit in the back, one commercial unit that was not rented. So basically, they've got 15 units fully rented and occupied on the commercial space. On the residential space upstairs, they've only been able to get 5 of the units on long-term tenants. And I think these 4 here that are located on this side of the building have long-term tenants in them. And then on this side of the building, there's, I think, another long-term tenant down here at the end. So essentially, there's 11 units here, starting at the end, going all the way, that are all, kind of cookie cutter, same kind of floor plan, one bedroom units that since October, basically. So this is, we're going on almost 5 to 6 months where these units have been sitting empty. So this is a perfect example of where we can kind of bring value to the owner of the building, and obviously set it up for short-term rental and be able to start generating revenue. So this is kind of a walkthrough of one of the units. All of the units are pretty much identical in terms of the footprint and floor plan. They've got these brand new washer dryer combos, and so those are the one unit where you can do washing machine and dryer at the same time. They've got these split units in them. This is the living room area, small dining room area off to the side. Kind of an alleyway kitchen, albeit fully updated, fully upgraded, brand new appliances and so on. The bathroom, kind of standard, tub with a shower, stand-up shower. Nothing fancy, but those are easy to clean and kind of keep, easy to upkeep. The bedroom is in fact a separate, separate entrance. So there's a door to that bedroom to have a private closing, and a closet there for the bedroom. One of the downsides to this, though, is and we've had this in some of our other multi-unit buildings, when you have the AC unit in one room in the front of the apartment, this is 600 square feet. So when they close that bedroom door, it's either going to be too warm in the summer months because this is the only unit in there, or it's going to be too cold in the winter months. Now, they do have a fan, a ceiling fan in the bedroom, but that's just one thing to kind of take note of as something to be aware of. You may have to do a space heater or something like that in the bedroom to try to accommodate the ability to offset that issue with the heat and the air in the bedroom. The other kind of major thing of note, when I toured the property last week, in these cases where we want to do a lot of units in one building, it's usually preferred and ideal to essentially have the cleaning closet, supplies, and so on somewhere on site, right? Or somewhere in the building where there's a spare storage room that you can kind of use, put a combo lock on it, and that's your access for your cleaners. Unfortunately, this entire building does not have that, right? And as you saw in the apartment, there's just one closet in there for the master bedroom, so it doesn't really lend itself well to do that. So what we would have to do in this case, there's a common area down here by the mailboxes right here. So where this plant is, we would probably put in 1 to 2 kind of lockable, either, kind of small supply closet shed type things that are exterior for us to be able to keep all the linens, the towels, the cleaning supplies, toiletries, toilet paper, paper towels, and so on. And so that's just one thing to kind of take note of. We don't have the flexibility of being able to have a closet. So the landlord has this thing rented at originally $1,100 for each of the one bedroom units on top. And as I mentioned, he's not been getting too many long-term tenants. I think given the way that this building is situated, it is, as you can tell, on a busy street, and it's kind of, commercial mixed with residential. Obviously, these buildings are all over the place in a lot of major cities, Philadelphia, Chicago, for example. This is kind of common. But for Chattanooga, Tennessee, that's probably why they're having a hard time renting the residential units. The long-term tenants are probably finding other favorable options in the area that are at the same price point. And so he's reduced the rent down to like $9.95 at this point. And we are in conversations with him, obviously, to do all 11 units. So the very next thing in which we kind of cover, as you guys know, in the program, is to understand the short-term rental rules, right? And understand what the regulations are in that city before you kind of engage with investing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, they've actually passed a law just recently in May of 2023 that basically restricts short-term rentals to primary resident, again, which is kind of the same default that a lot of these folks do, and for at least 183 days of the year. And so it doesn't lend itself for residential properties in Chattanooga to do this. Now, what they've done is they do allow some pathways for that, and they basically have what they're calling an overlay section, or a short-term rental vacation overlay, where they do allow in those particular areas to do that. And so there are defined areas of Chattanooga where there are some exceptions The other good thing here is they do allow this in commercially zoned. Obviously, this is a commercially zoned building. And, so from the ability to move forward, it does qualify that. Now, it always helps to kind of read the fine print here when they have ordinances and to have a good understanding of what the requirements are. And so as you look at the actual legal details that was voted in and approved, the residential zones shall contain no more than 5 bedrooms and shall exclude hotels, rooming houses, bed and breakfast, boarding houses, or other licensed multifamily dwelling units for rent or lease as defined. And so they've got these other sections that they're referencing as exclusions. And so I've actually reviewed each one of those. The big thing to point out here, though, is that no multifamily dwelling units shall exceed a maximum of 25% of the total units in a given building or structure. All right, so to do this legally in Chattanooga, yes, it's a commercial building. They allow that. You can get a license for short-term rentals and you can get a certificate and you can actually do it. But in this case, we're only limited to a maximum of 25% of the total units. Now, as I went in and did the research on these other sections, and so to understand if there's some kind of exception for our building, their exceptions are some animal daycare centers, which is not applicable to us. The other thing was kind of a rooming house, and the other section talks to more of kind of a hotel situation, right? So to get a good understanding, you have to kind of do a lot of research here to get a good understanding of what's involved with the details instead of just the high level that they have over here. They say nothing about the 25% in their little thing on their website. So you really have to go look at the actual the law itself to understand clearly. So what does that do? So that tells us that legally we cannot do short-term rentals in all 11 units. Now, does that mean we kind of squash this as an opportunity? No. So we could legally do 25% of the 16 units, which would be 4 units. And then we could explore doing a midterm rental for some of the other units as an option, right? And so as we dig further and start doing a market analysis on this, basically, if I can get my screen fixed here. In the market of Chattanooga, there are, obviously multiple short-term rentals. Let me see where I got my stuff here. Yeah. Right. So Chattanooga is definitely quite a number of short-term rentals. For those of you familiar with Chattanooga, there's a Tennessee Aquarium. There's a river that goes by there. There's kind of a cool downtown area, a lot of visitors. This is also nearby to a lot of other different public parks and mountains and streams and waterfalls and things. So it is a popular destination. The area in which this building is located is just north of Chattanooga in this town called Hickson. So it's not necessarily directly in the Chattanooga market, but it's good to understand kind of where we are in reference to where all the action's happening, right? And so in the Chattanooga market, there's 1,800 short-term rental listings. The overall rating is 97 according to AirDNA. They've kind of given it obviously a low score on regulation, but from an investability standpoint and the cost of getting into properties, it's rating pretty high. The occupancies average for all properties is 57% with a nightly rate of 191, so it's pretty good. The other thing to kind of take note of is there's been a lot of recent growth, even though in May of 2023 they had these regulations put in place. They've still continued to add more listings, and the market is over the last couple of years actually doubled in size as far as number of listings. And so the other thing to look for, obviously, is how many 1 bedrooms are available compared to the rest of the market. This is pretty typical in most markets. 37% or so are 1 bedrooms. The rest are larger properties. The other thing to look at that I like to look when I'm looking at new markets is understanding, this is a pretty good feature that AirDNA does where they show us who the actual the other managers are, right? So as you guys know, when we go into a market, when we do our market research, we're typically going to, over the first 3 or 4 months, our goal is to exceed these market averages over here by 20 to 30%, right? And what tends to happen is most of the other property managers in the area are basically doing the same thing. They're doing it like we are. They're running it like a business. They've got pricing tools. They've got channel managers. They're maximizing their revenue. So it's good to understand who those players are in the market. And not only that, how many listings do they have, as well as how are they doing with their reviews. And so all of them are kind of in the high fours with reviews. The highest number of listings is 34 listings. And so, again, this is a good thing to just kind of understand who the players are in that market. Now, because this is in Hickson, which is just north of Chattanooga, this is the number of short-term rentals that are in the Hickson market. This is about a 20-minute drive to Chattanooga, so it's a little bit on the outskirts. The market scores a little bit lower at an 86, albeit you're still got pretty good occupancy and average nightly rates as an average. There's currently 79 short-term rental listings. There's actually a little bit more one bedrooms in that market than in Chattanooga. So there's 48% of the market that are one bedrooms. And so the actual growth has been consistent as well, although we've had a pretty big drop off with listings from the beginning of this year. It's kind of plummeted down to 32, where it was as high as another 20 listings or so just prior to that. So there might have been something that's occurred in that general area that's caused a lot of those listings to drop off. So I am going to answer some questions here when we're done with this presentation. So I see that we've got a question here in the chat. So we'll go through kind of Q&A here in a minute when I'm done with the presentation. So Hickson only has one property manager with one listing, Vacasa. So again, just to understand, what the competition looks like from a professional manager standpoint. So that tells me right away the vast majority of the market are not necessarily professional folks, and that could be a potential good thing for us when we're looking at understanding what the competition is, right? So when I run the analysis on a one bedroom, one bath for that location, the average revenue is at $22,000 for a year, 56% occupancy with 108 average daily rate. And so when I plug that into my calculator, which I'll pull up here. So when I plug that into our master lease calculator, we're basically looking at, all right, this is a 1-1. The rent-a-meter market rate is telling us it's around 1,200. I think a lot of the comps on rent-a-meter are the traditional kind of guest houses, basement apartments. They're not multi-unit buildings like this one is. So there's very little other multi-unit buildings other than the traditional, larger complexes where you've got, 200 units that are in that with amenities, with swimming pools and so on. So they're able to command a higher monthly long-term rental rate. So the 995 is definitely, if we were to engage, going to be putting us in a good spot. So if I do the estimate of, I stay pretty close to what the average showed me on AirDNA at 60% occupancy with an average daily rate of 110. Our gross rental revenue is around 1980 or close to 2000. And so that gives us a estimated monthly revenue after all of our expenses here. After we pay the rent, the water, electricity, gas, internet, pest control, supplies, we're going to be doing around 675 as an estimated monthly net. And so when we come over here to the right of the sheet, it gives us basically kind of a 50% rental rate as compared to the gross. And then our 10-day short-term rental revenue that we like to look at, so you're doing basically taking your nightly rate times 10 days. How does that compare to my cost on the monthly rent of $995? And it's about 11% higher. And so we use this as a barometer to kind of determine how does this opportunity compare to some of the other opportunities we're looking at. For example, you might have some of the other ones where the average daily rate might be $85, right? And so what does that do? It brings it 15% below. So our 10-day rule of thumb, if it takes me more than 10 days to get the actual amount for the rent, then you're going to be struggling with when you have some of those months with lower occupancy to make sure that you're at least covering your baseline. And so that's a good quick sanity check as you're doing your analysis to understand how that compares to the other opportunities you're looking at. Now, staging and setup cost, I've got it around $7,500. I'm doing a 24-month lease. And so given the current revenue potential here, we're at about 11 months to break even to recoup our $7,500. And then after that, it's net profit. Now, I'm going to do a quick deep dive and kind of show you guys the comps. And we'll come back to this calculator because, like I mentioned, this is the average of the market. And so I always like to kind of start there as a conservative number, but know that our upside potential is typically going to be, 20 to 30% higher than this as we get traction, start getting good reviews after that first 3 or 4 months. And so we'll come back to this here in a minute and look and see what that looks like as an opportunity for on the upside as far as that goes. Let's see here. Where was I? Okay, I'm down here. So on our market analysis, on the, let's see, I did a breakout of the comps, and let me just get back to them here and find them. So when we look at the comps in the area, there's basically 5 comps that were all 1 bedrooms, very close to the location. And so when I look at each of those 5 comps, and it basically clearly shows me that most of them, or pretty much all of them, are not multi-unit buildings, right? So that's a good and a bad thing. So all of our competition are either, like this looks like to be maybe a basement apartment. They've got good reviews, 4.96, 170 reviews, a lot of activity. Let's see here, let me move this down. So the next one, same thing here. We've got kind of like again, it's not like a standalone apartment like ours is. It's more part of somebody's house, either back entrance, separate entrance kind of deal. They're getting a lot of reviews, 4.95. Another 1 bedroom. This is probably, again, somebody's, just the back of somebody's house, separate entrance. So, the positive about that is that if you have someone that's wanting the privacy, wanting to have a standalone apartment in a multifamily building, then it gives them, there's not many options in this area other than these ones that are tied. This is kind of like a guest house as well. So all of the comps are kind of that option, right? So that gives us some differentiating in the market and is potentially a positive. Now, as you guys know, I like to do like a deeper dive on each of the comps, right? And so now with the AirDNA tool, it lets you look at historical revenue for each of those comps. So each of the ones I just kind of showed you quickly on their Airbnb listings, these are their actual historical data for the last 12 months. And so that first one, they had, some slow down in October, November. What we're not clear on is whether they had their calendar blocked, which they have it blocked for all of April. So this could have been an anomaly in October, November, where they might have been using it for something else. All of May, these are the pricings they currently have listed for May. They are obviously using a pricing tool because you've got, obviously adjustments here for supply and demand, higher on the weekends. The next listing, same thing. We've got some downtime in December, January. They've actually got a couple of bookings here. Looks like they're taking one-night bookings, and they're blocking off. They might be using it for personal use. And then this particular listing is going way down to $50 a night during the week and only $100 on the weekend. This one, basically, revenue is pretty high during March. They've got April, they've got it fully, mostly booked here, and their average price is 89. Now, this is an example of just a mom and pop. They're not really using a pricing tool. They've got one price for every single night of the week, all the way through May. And that's probably why they're getting bookings, right? They're not doing any kind of sophisticated adjustments in their pricing. So again, gives you a deep dive on what the competition's doing, so you can get a good sense for how your one bedroom is going to compete. This one's a little bit priced a little bit higher with bookings. This one is in that same range, right? And so the whole key to this is to differentiate ourselves compared to these other options so that we can start commanding a price higher than this, what these averages are showing us here, right? So when we do that, let's say after the first 2, 3, 4 months, let's say we can get up to 125, as an average nightly rate as we start getting good reviews. And the other thing that we can do here with these units is we can also do multiple listings where we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms available for one party to book. If you've got like bachelorette parties and things of that nature that allow for folks to stay in one location. And so the upside, or kind of what we could present as a goal, is to break even in 8 months instead of 11 and have close to $1,000 in monthly net revenue as your potential revenue here. And so that's kind of the overview of this opportunity. And I think it's a good case study because there are, much like residential properties, there are commercial properties that have issues with occupancy and long-term tenants. And we can come in with a short-term rental model and present some good options for it. And so again, it's rather surprising that they were able to get all these commercial retail spots almost fully booked up when residential wasn't. So especially considering where we are in the market, but that is that's where it's at. And so I think if we find opportunities like this and are able to do a similar analysis, you can definitely see where there might be some opportunity there. And so I will open it up for questions. I think Ed was asking, are those Chattanooga regs or specific to Hickson? So yeah, that's a good question. So that's the other part of your analysis, right? Is understanding clearly where are they talking about when they look at regulations, right? And so when I contacted Chattanooga to confirm the 25% multifamily, is it also in Hickson? They recommended I reach out to the county. The county confirmed that property location is technically still Chattanooga city limits and still under that ordinance. And so you do have to jump through a couple more hoops to confirm exactly where that property is located in relation to where the regulations are. And so that's always a good thing to kind of double check. So that's a good question. Any other questions?